Yoko, a low, confident and depressed girl, with so many scars on her heart, was just hanging on a thin thread of life, but one day she decided to take a sad decision regarding her life. From physical and mental trauma which had piled up inside her, she really didn't have anything. No money, no house, and on top of everything, it was her beauty that she cried out for. She had dark eyes and scarred skin which made her sure that she was ugly and not attractive at all. This is the story of how Yoko, an ugly princess from nowhere, comes to learn the fact that there is more to life than a beautiful face. The first thing we see when the manga opens is Yoko standing on a metal structure and looking down. Now it was clear that she was heading to a place with no return, and with a sad tone she shares that she is ugly and poor to the point that she can't fix it no matter what. People look at her and complain about her face being similar to a dying pig. This was just one of the many names that people referred to her as. This time she readied herself, and cried out that most of her life she suffered like a low life with no meaning. She had an abusive and a hideous past, which shaped her mindset in a sad path. Her mother was someone who would constantly beat her when she was a little kid, and in school she started to get bullied because of her face. Unable to keep up with her mother's abuse at home and endless bullying, Yoko runs away from home without finishing school. The harsh reality hits her even harder when she realized that without looks, girls are rejected harder than ever, and no matter how many jobs she applied for, she was rejected on spot. She ran out of all funds and was almost at a stage where she needed to beg just to feed herself. As she notices a couple hugging each other in the park, she cries out that she always wanted to be embraced and cared for by someone as well. Filled with sorrow and misery, she decided to take her next step, and immediately from the back a man grabs onto her. Now she just stayed in the air for a few seconds and our male protagonist tightens his grip and pulls her away. He asked if she was alright, and when she glanced back, she saw an attractive man with almost no flaw staring at her. She blushed like crazy, and quickly she averts her eyes and began to wonder just how she could talk to him. With a cold voice he asks her if she has no interest in life, and Yoko was just done for. She questioned if she smelled bad, which she did, and was worried that the man would freak out. He asks her that if she wants to die then she could at least do him a favor. Not in her wildest dreams had Yoko really expected to hear a random attractive man propose to anyone, and this time with a confident voice he asks her if she would like to marry him. She just froze there, wondering if she was in a game or something, and our male protagonist was actually pretty serious about this request. Kirihara begins to comfort her, and in a calm voice he lets her know that if she has nowhere to go then she can come with him, and not be so fixated on ending everything for herself. She just looked at the seriousness in his eyes, and he had no malice whatsoever. It looked like that he genuinely didn't care for her looks or status, and poor Yoko began to tear up. She jolts and cries out that it is literally her first time to ever get treated this nice by someone else. She cries that she never thought that anyone would ever care for her. He reaches out his hand and he invites her to his world, and although it was too much for Yoko to process, she knew that she could not just be stuck in this cycle of abuse. Her wildest fantasies were being converted into reality, and she knew that this time could never repeat, so she does what she wanted to do. She takes Kurihara's hand, and there she begins another phase in her life that would frankly shake and distort everything that she once believed in. The start of her second life was there, and when she sees the apartment and place he lived in, her eyes widen to see that his home was just too expensive. Kirihara lived in a top-notch, expensive and high-end apartment with almost everything that a human needs, but with a luxury touch. This was the place that he was referring to earlier when he shared his motivation. He asks her if she would be alright and ready to stay at the guest house for a few days, but Yoko was just blown away, muttering to herself that rich people care about small details like giving guests a separate home. Kirihara makes her tea, and as she captured every side of his face and body, he began to follow up on the previous topic about the marriage. He asks her if she hates him, and she begins to shout the opposite things. She lowers her head and shares that someone like her doesn't deserve the privilege of first-sight love. Now in the midst of this conversation, he ends up making a request to her. Instead of learning the request he made, we get to the scene where she gets introduced to her new room where she would stay in. An oversized room with a king-size bed. She places her luggage down, and she began to rethink the absurd request he made. Kurihara tells Yoko that their marriage doesn't really need to be a love marriage and it could be a contract marriage. However, in that contract there is something that she needs to do for him. With a cold voice he tells her that she needs to get plastic surgery on her face. He shares that he has an ideal face that he wants to see her in. Her eyes widen as she hears this, and back to the present she wonders if Kurihara has some type of fetish or something. In her eyes she has already registered Kurihara to be a wonderful soul, lacking nothing, and to Yoko this makes no sense. She switches side and reflects how he might hate her face or something, and she cries out how no man would really like to kiss or be with her. She ponders and wonders if he is planning on changing her face so he could start a sex business or something. And thinking this, she began to switch sides again, and with a bold tone she asks herself if a sex business is profitable. Well, this could be something that she might be pushed into, and from the start she was always obedient to anyone who talked to her with a harsh or loud tone. Her mother blamed Yoko for ruining her relationship with her ex-husband who left her when she was little. Her mother abused and harassed her for having an ugly face, and this was all that she remembered of her childhood, pain and beatings of all types. Here in this apartment, even if he wants a rather strange request, she mutters to herself that she could do anything here and never worry about money or any other thing, and on top of everything her husband would be a perfect hunk, who really could be a movie star. She makes a decision and musters the courage to step out of her boundaries, since this could be the spider thread hanging only for her for a limited period of time. The next day, she gets out and Kurihara was busy with his own stuff. She walks in with light and nervous steps. She calls out to him, and with a confident voice she lets him know that she would do it. The determination in her really moves Kurihara, and he immediately hugs her. She blushes like crazy, but on the other side, Kurihara had a smile that really needs to be questioned. That was the beginning of everything, and just like that 6 months go by, and we see a tall building covered in glass. Kurihara makes his way into the VIP session, and a nurse guides him through the way. Inside, his wife was waiting and he greets Yoko, and she obviously was giving a totally different vibe. As they began to talk to each other over small things, it was clear that they both respected each other a lot. As we see the new and beautiful Yoko, she was entirely different and looked like a model from a fashion magazine. She clenched her fist and exclaims that she is Kurihara's wife. They drive back, and Kurihara shares how Yoko must have had it hard to live in a hospital for 6 months and go through all the painful treatments. He lets her know that she has become very beautiful. As she blushed after hearing this, she gets back to their new place, and she still couldn't believe that she would be living here with her ideal man. Over the last few months, Kurihara visited her regularly, and was very kind to her. He lets her know that he would make her some tea and she could watch the TV until that, and when she heard the phrases he started to call her out with, she was filled with happiness. Whenever he would refer to her as wife, her heart still struggled a lot, and she just wondered how this would all turn out when they would embrace each other in the bed soon. She turns on the TV after blushing, and she decided to just watch whatever was playing. The program she decided to watch was sharing old mysterious murders that took place in the past, and as the TV host spewed more, they began to move the segment and decided to show a picture of a murdered body. In the next second, the TV show displays an exact picture of Yoko's current face, and just looking at this, she completely goes numb. It was 100% the same. Not only that, but the mole near her eyes was also same as the person in the picture. When she was in the midst of painful surgery, she had thought that maybe Kurihara thought a mole near the eyes was sexy or something. It turned out that there was something else. She was sure that this was the face that he wanted, and as she saw this, she questioned if this is an actress or something. The program continued and they shared that 10 years ago, this person was found dead and her skin was cut off from her face. Just hearing this, all her fantasies and happy vibe goes down the drain and her eyes widen to hear that there was a lie in the contract for sure. She began to feel uncomfortable and knew that something was wrong. Since the body of the girl was found in an unexplainable condition, Yoko was scared for her life, and from the back, Kurihara leans over her in a creepy manner and gives her the tea. The way he leaned was too abnormal, and he had spirals going on inside his eyes, and the charming person that she knew he was, it turned out that he was surely someone different. The program added that the murder case of that woman is still unsolved, and Kirihara smiles and lets her know that her tea is ready and getting cold. The second life that Yoko dreamed of was something that she should have never considered and wished for in the first place. Yoko has done everything to have the perfect face for Kirihara, but this deal seems like a trap more than anything else. She points out to the screen and asks why his ideal face of a woman is a victim of a murder. He gives a mischievous smile, and he lets her know that he couldn't believe that she found this out after changing her face and marrying him. He leans over and in a creepy way he lets her know that she is doomed. He asks if she knows why her face is similar to that person, and he lets her know that she was his first love. She listens to this and realizes that he changed her face into the person he used to love a long time ago. He sits down, but Yoko just couldn't believe that the face he wanted her to change into was someone else's, meaning her previous face and looks were never important to him from day one, and on top of this, the woman he loved was murdered. She was scared and wondered if she could really trust him or not, and he begins to shed tears. He cried out that he never wanted to let her feel like this and never wanted to scare her, but she calms him down. He asks if this makes her uncomfortable, and although it did make her uneasy, she replies that it must have been a tough incident. He smiles and all the serious atmosphere shifts when he brushes his hair and mutters to her that if she is done then they could go to the bed together. She goes crazy in her mind, and in the next second, they were in bed together. She faced the other side since she couldn't handle his stares and her mind was just filled with wonders and dirty fantasies. Since she never really had any experience in love life, she had no idea how to handle sexual situations, and from the back, Kirihara calls out to her, and she panics. He slides his arm across her, and he gets on top of her, ready to progress their relationship forward. She cries from under, and he asks if she has any experience in this. With a weak voice she lets him know that she once tried to work in the sex industry but failed, and ever since that she has never really tried to experience anything. She lets him know that she would definitely not be that good in this. He hears this and immediately he moves back and he covers her up. He reminds her that since they both stayed up in the hospital for a long time, it would be best that they rest. He smiles and moves away, allowing her to relax and not feel pressured into doing something different. As he went to sleep, she couldn't believe that he was so kind through and through. Even though she was scared about the murderer not found up until now, she was still glad that he was transparent to her and didn't hide anything from her. The word murder doesn't scare her, but Yoko just decided to try her best to fill his crush's spot and become the best wife for him. Although she made the biggest mistake yet, to trust a complete stranger, she had no idea that she just tied her knot with a very mysterious and dangerous man. As she fell asleep, Kirihara was awake, and he was huffing for air and had a devilish smile on his face. He patted her face over and over, and as she slept, the mole that was carved on her face, he kept poking it, and in a creepy tone, he mutters that this face is still as beautiful as ever. The next day she gets up and walks out to see Kirihara greeting her. He lets her know that they should go out for a walk, and when they left the place, there was someone watching them. As the unknown figure saw both Yoko and Kirihara, he spews that Yoko has the same face as the victim. They entered in a luxury and stylish cafe, and immediately her brain just started to process the details. She never really had the chance to eat outside like she was about to do, and since her trash parents only abandoned and locked her, she hadn't gotten any food since she was abandoned again in an orphanage. During that time, she was only allowed to have a 100 yen burger a day. As we see her eating the burger when she was a little timid kid. Back to present, her mouth watered just remembering the taste. Kirihara calls out to her, and when she sat down, she noticed that every girl in the cafe was secretly eyeing for him, and his looks impressed everyone there. Being escorted by such a handsome, she couldn't really complain for anything, and Yoko was surely blessed to be the chosen one. Kirihara hands her the menu, and when she checked it, her brain stopped working when she saw a weird-looking item with a long price tag. As she just wondered what these things are, she was struggling a lot, and the waitress herself asked if she should come back after a few minutes. Yoko began to overthink, and Kirihara calls to that girl and lets her know that she should share the most popular dish on the menu, and since they have never been here before they would like to start from there. As the waitress smiled, and Kirihara tells Yoko that she should have the same dessert as him, she smiled and exclaimed in agreement. She glances at him and wonders if he was embarrassed due to her antics earlier, and Yoko cries out that she really didn't get any exposure to a proper life as a woman. Her doubts and negative talk regarding herself filled the space, and she reflected that if she had a slightly normal or attractive face, she could have at least experienced a few dates, and not mess up here. To her, she was still an ugly-faced girl with nothing to her name, and no value. When the food came, Kurihara points out that she was very quiet, and she began to answer him in a pained tone. With a sad voice, she asks him if it is really alright for someone as ugly and poor as her to be right beside him. As she sees another reflection of her old self, Kurihara just makes a shocked expression, and she begins to make jokes here and there to not ruin the overall atmosphere. With a weak voice, he asks her if she thinks that ugly people don't deserve good places like this one. When he said this, all the words that Yoko wanted to say just left her mouth, and he adds that if the old Yoko wasn't here, the present you wouldn't exist. He adds that it is never a nice thing to say hurtful things about yourself, and self-deprecation is a sign which can bring down all confidence of one person. With a helpless and angry expression, he shares that she can't do this. When he made such a troubled expression, for a minute she was still. Immediately she jumps and lets him know that she was embarrassed earlier. As they began to talk over these things, she shares that she still has a negative side of her that she is working to improve. As her words become more uplifting and pure, he reaches his hand out, and in the next second he pats her head. He smiles and lets her know she is very honest. However, all that lovely conversation gets away when he gets a message on his phone. And when he checked it, there was something very sinister going on, and immediately his attitude towards her changed. He gets up and without saying anything other than sorry and goodbye, he leaves her for some time. This was too sudden, and Yoko didn't really notice anything bad. Or even if she did, she choose notice bad things about him. She just creates her own explanation for his unusual behaviors. She reminded herself that he could be busy, but it seemed like she was already head over heels for him, and there was nothing that could have led her to think about negative facts regarding her new husband. From the side, a figure approaches, and immediately she wonders if Kurihara is back, but an entirely different man sits across her and calls out to her name. As she began to wonder if he was Kurihara's friend, he brings out his police badge and he shows it to her and introduces himself as a detective. Yusei really looked like a suspicious person at first, but he began to share how he is working on some serious stuff and murder cases. Yoko knew for a fact that a detective could only stop by her for a case-related reason, and frankly she was ready for the question. But Yusei lets her know that Yoko isn't the marked person, but rather her so-called husband is the one being marked. She clenches her fist, and she lets him know that whatever he says, she believes in her husband and he is not a terrible person. Since a lot of suspicion was obviously being raised, she was sure that it all was related to the murder case. He gets up and lets her know that she can really think whatever she wants, and that police officer leans over her and lets her know that her so-called husband, Kurihara, that person doesn't really exist. As he left, Yoko was again left in with so much questions that no one could answer. That day getting back home was really difficult for her, and thoughts about the thing the detective said just kept circling around her head. She asks herself if her husband is actually an unknown person with no background or history, but no matter what she could do, she was already married to him, and deep down she just wanted a happy life for the two of them. Well, she went home that day, but Yusei on the other hand just recovered something big. As he thanks everyone for their good work, he makes his way to a crime scene which was just letting out a bad vibe. The other police officer informed Yusei that they found a body over on that location, and the body was found a few hours ago. Yusei complains and mutters how his work life is just all over the place, and curses that today he wanted to share a few details about Kurihara with Yoko. One of the police officers approaches him, and lets him know that this body is similar to other unsolved case. The face of the body was completely peeled off, making this another case that happened 10 years ago to Hatsuno, the girl Yoko shares her face with. As we see the gruesome sight of the victim's face, it was clear that a demon was behind these murders. Back at home, she was waiting for Kurihara, and when he returns she greets him but notices that his face was different from before. It almost seemed like he was struggling for something, or perhaps he was scared of something. He quietly walks back to his place and poor Yoko just couldn't bear his look and began to ask him if he is alright. He quickly decided to take a shower, and immediately he went to the bed to sleep. Now she tried to make her way with him, and this was her time to show him that she cared for him, so she brings out a tray filled with melted sugar, and inside it was lemon slices. She nervously brings them over to him, and she offers them to him. As he smiled, he reflected how this is nostalgic. He bites into the lemon, and the perfect thing she planned using her manga failed as the lemon were sour, and he made a troubled expression. She cries that they must surely be sweet, but when she tried them out, all her words leave her brain and end up crippling in her mouth, and she yammers out that it is bitter as hell. Seeing her like this, he lets out a smile, and he thanks her for helping him loosen up from all the stress. He lays down and thanks her for everything. He looks to the other side and lets her know that for being nice to him, he really couldn't ask for anything else. He quickly falls asleep, and as she checked, she pats him and quickly goes to do some laundry. She first brushes her teeth and notices that the old clothes that he wore were giving a rather different scent. She reminds herself that she is his wife, and this is all her responsibility. She checks his pants and from it, soil falls down. She didn't really think a lot of this, and next day he was about to leave her because of some work. As she worriedly sends him off, he decided to just connect his forehead with hers. He asks if she would make him some lemonade when he returns. With this small gesture, both of their worlds brighten up and they were ready to fill the day. Yoko was actually planning on doing something else. Today she was about to investigate on her own and find out about the killer of Hatsuno, and she has a perfect place where she can go. She makes her way to the place, and as she stands in front of a building, she cries out that this all feels too nostalgic. This was the place where she lived for a long time. For her, this was the best and cheapest place ever. Here she can use the computer all day long and not worry about anything. She enters and places a card in the tray, but a super scary tattooed man greets her and asks how she has this membership card which was supposed to be someone else's. As her soul leaves her body, she panics and that man begins to force her to answer. Later in the staff office, both of them sit down and Akira begins to go through her old stuff. He learns that she ended up going through cosmetic surgery and changed her face, and as he patted his chest, he thanks heaven to find her safe and healthy. He shares how he learned that she left this place with tattered clothes and had a sad look on her face that day. Just hearing someone else talk about her in a gentle way, she began to tear up and was so glad to see that someone was actually good enough to care for her old self. She lowers her head and remembers all the painful things. Later she began to check everything, and as she checked and went through old files over and over again, Hatsuno's case was a real mystery. Her body was found in a river and everything on her face was gouged out. She checked all the files which were old and had interesting details, and noticed that there was an image folder. It mentioned that there could be suspected witnesses. She decided to check them, and when she opened, there was a picture of Kurihara there, and just seeing this her whole world changed. It was clearly him from all angles, and she questioned if this is really happening. She immediately remembered the detective and how they suspected Kurihara, but when Akira joined Yoko as well, he looked at the picture and instantly he lets Yoko know that this case was very popular and it circulated around a lot. When she questioned this, he lets Yoko know in a calm voice that all the suspects and people related to this case died a long time ago. As he left, Yoko's worst nightmare just came to life, and now she is stuck with a husband that she has no idea who he really is. Over on the other side of a mountain, someone with golden hair was digging something up, and as that figure made a pose, there was something dark and hideous taking place that no one was ready for. As it seemed like he dug something out or hid something, the figure and body structure matched Kurihara's. After finding something very mysterious about her husband, she goes out to find Akira, and as he scolds her for calling him by his real name, she asks him about more information and the suspect of the murder case he talked about earlier. He mutters to her that he doesn't really remember all that information about this, and Yoko was sure that he could not be aware of Kurihara's identity. Now he was fixated on the fact that Yoko was using this murder case for her novel, and after she left the shop, he didn't really think too much on this. He quietly glares at her, and deep down he thanked heaven for keeping Yoko safe and sound. He knew that she had no money, or any place, and he was worried for her through and through. It was a rather big surprise for him to see Yoko completely new and married to a person, but despite everything he was truly happy for her, and he couldn't help but wish good things for her in the future. On her way back, she wondered if Kirihara is actually the person who murdered his own crush in cold blood, and her questions for him kept growing. As these things ended up creating more negative energy, she began to drown in the void of possibility, and every thought of her led her to suspicion of her own husband. She wondered if he wanted to change her face to be free from guilt, or even worse, if he wanted to kill her again. In times like this, a break is usually the best therapy, and she does that. This was the time where she needed to either run for her life and cut ties with Kirihara or make a decision regarding her livelihood. She kept asking if he killed her or not, and as she smiles a bit, she was ready to get by this phase of her life using the things that she did in the past. When her mother became violent and abused her every day, poor Yoko began to hypnotize herself by reminding that it doesn't hurt anymore. She kept doing this all the way until her high school, where bullies targeted her. She slaps her cheek and reminds herself that she needs to get through this no matter what. Since this is the second life of her, everything that she failed to do in her previous life, she needs to get over it and make the most out of the situation. In this life she would not endure, but rather fight. She exclaims to herself that she has decided what to do. That night, Kirihara comes back home and she greets him with a cold voice. As he approached her, she tells Kirihara that there is a flaw in their marriage contract. She adds that yesterday a detective tailing him met her and shared a few things about him. He immediately lowers his head and with a painful voice he asks about the things that man asked her. She shares that he just met her and left, but her words became even colder, and she added how it was his responsibility to share that they were also going to get into troubles like this. A dead atmosphere surrounds them, and Yoko clenches her fist, and she reminds herself that a person who saved her surely wouldn't kill anyone, and if he wanted to kill someone, he would have already slaughtered her. She walks towards him, and with a confident and uplifting voice she lets him know that the contract should allow them both to trust each other to the point where everything else falls apart. She lets him know that even though he doesn't share the things happening, she cries to him that no matter what she would believe him. As she said this, behind her was a table full of food that she made for him, and just seeing this, Kirihara ends up seeing a terrifying sight of a head covered with a cloth. He grabs Yoko's face and in the next second he kisses her, and he quickly moves back. Now Yoko was just sent to the moon at this point, and she began to adjust her settings, and Kirihara looks to his hand and figures that he must have pushed himself on her, and he began to apologize. As he calls out her name, he kept apologizing, and despite her words he was still struggling to open up to her. She lowers her head and lets him know that she knows she is a replacement, and hearing this Kirihara interrupts her and cries to her that she is not a replacement at all, but from the back a loud ringtone shakes them both. They glanced back and it was late at night, and both just wondered if this was a mistake or something. From outside a man began to introduce himself, and immediately Yoko rushed to open the door, not thinking of the horrible things it could lead to. From the other side of the door, Yusei greets Yoko, and immediately he shows a letter to them both. This arrest warrant was issued for Kirihara, and as a team surrounded them, they began to raid their sweet home. Yoko cried out that surely there could be a mistake, but the devil she met earlier was already ready to devour them both. He shares that Kirihara's traces were found near the new corpse they found, and this all leads to him being the murderer. He starts to smile and spews on how they would take her away as his witness as well. That day a crack in Yoko's new marriage formed which never heals,